RC Texan here, and this is my FMS 1400mm Corsair. We've had a little boo-boo with it. As you can see, the fuselage is cracked on one side. I've got motor that dislodged. My wing is completely broken in half, well, at the tip there. So this is one of the things that we're going to be fixing. And my rudder, I'm going to have to replace that rudder, and I'm going to makeshift a rudder for that. Now, the retracts, they did bend. As you can see, there's a curve in. I can probably bend some of them back, but I don't know. I haven't tested to see if they are functional yet. But I'm gonna start off with the fuselage and work my way to the wing. So got quite a bit of work to do. This is what holds the motor in. This was loose, so I took that completely out, and I had to carve out some of the foam in here to get this out. So I'm gonna epoxy here and here and let that dry, and then I'm gonna reset this and epoxy this in place and let that dry before I even attempt to put the motor back in. So, and the boards come loose here, so, which that's not too bad of a fix. Just glue that back in place. Yeah, so we've got a little bit of work to do, but we're gonna make it happen. Right now I'm about to mix up some 5-minute epoxy, and that's what I'm going to use to get the side of the fuselage here put back together. I will be using 5-minute just so I can hold pressure on it the whole time, and that way I don't have to tape it. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix up some epoxy. Use a liberal amount. You'll notice the color change. It'll start turning like a milky kind of color there. So I'm just gonna kind of use my elbow to push it open and start applying. And I'm not really worried about putting too much on there, because I really want it to hold. I start to feel like it's a little thick in there. All right, now that that's in, hold, and you can see it coming out the top there, so you know it's going to be on both sides there. So I'm just going to sit here and hold direct pressure on it. Let's use my thumb to just wipe that, wipe the inside. And now here's the fun part where we just sit and wait for 5 minutes. We've got this piece glued. It's been about 10 minutes. It's 5-minute epoxy, but, and I have put pressure on it the whole time. I just let go. I'm not gonna do anything stressful with it at the moment. But what I am gonna do is this board, since it came unglued, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up another little batch of epoxy, and I'm gonna put right there so this glue this board back in place. And since it's kind of on both sides, I might as well go ahead and do, you know, both sides so they will stay in equally. So, and just remember it goes this way. So I'll mix up another little batch. So I'm just putting a little epoxy on each side here. And I'm not going to overdo it with the epoxy because it won't take much for just to hold that board in. So just a little bit on each side. All right, and then put the board back in, make sure the wires aren't rubbing up against the epoxy. And then go ahead and set that board in there. It's flush. And I'll just sit here and hold it just like that. Just for a couple minutes, let it get tacky, then I'll be able to let go of it. And just so we know, just if you wanted to do a double check to make sure that you have the board in the right direction, you can flip your fuselage over and you can see these are going to be where your connectors from your wings go in. So everything's in the right spot. This is looking really good. So I'm really happy about that. And what I'm going to do is on this side, I am going to run a stick of balsa or maybe some light ply right through here just to reinforce, since this whole edge, it was cracked all the way through. So I will be running like a 1/8 strips right through here and just epoxy it on there just to add a little bit of extra strength. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take 2 of these popsicle sticks and I'm gonna run them one on top and one towards the bottom. So right across here for the top one. And you can go liberal with this because we definitely want to reinforce that side, and it's not going to hurt to coat the inside of it as well. So very liberal with that. It's on there, maybe just a tad bit more. All right, so now I'm gonna take and set the bottom stick in. Now I'm gonna try and center it right where that crease is at. So that crease, or that where the fuselage is cracked, is right here. So I want one there on the bottom, and I want one here on top, just below where the canopy is gonna sit. Just like that. And now I'm gonna take my stick here and just kind of work some of this in here, because I did go liberal with it.
Almost like you're just caulking the cracks.
And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my clamp and I'm going to see if I can clamp both of these just like that. maybe a little bit further down on that second. Well, that's about as far as I can go, so I might move this one up. There we go. So now that'll just add a little bit of reinforcement. Now when I do put the canopy on, I might have to trim just a little bit, but that will work. So we'll let that clamp sit there, and that's just going to add just a little bit of reinforcement for your side to side. So now we'll let that sit and we'll move on to the next part. Okay, so it's been roughly about 10 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that clamp, and these are firmly on there. The outside is still a little tacky, but that is definitely going to reinforce this whole seam that we have here from the inside. So that will definitely take some of the stress factor off of there. So I think that's a good idea, and it's not going to interfere with anything. Like I said, when I put the canopy on, if I do have to trim a little bit off the canopy to slide this in, I will, but I don't think I'll have to. So on this next part, I had to remove this piece right here. This is what holds your motor on. So it was loose in there, and as you can see, this foam right here is loose. It's broken apart from the crash. So it's loose on that side, and it's a little loose on that side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and epoxy both sides in, let those dry, and then I'm going to re-epoxy this back inside here. Now I did have to trim this right here to get this piece out. So when I epoxy it in, I'll make sure I put a lot of epoxy on this outside and this bottom side, so it'll sit flush up against here and here. So that's going to be my next step. I'm going to have to push this piece back so I can get the epoxy actually in there. Trying to get it on both sides, and I'm trying to scoop epoxy and hold this at the same time. But get it in there as much as possible. All right, and then set that back in place, and I want to make sure that I flush that out, and I can see a few little cracks in the foam. So I'm just going to go in there and try to use this as a filler as well. Now this, you don't want to overdo it, because you are going to have to put the motor mount back in there. Alright, now I'm going to go over to this side. I have to turn it a little bit. Now this one's not as bad. Bit too much. But so these popsicle sticks come in handy. You can stick it down in there. Get the epoxy in. All right, and now that that's in, I want to make sure I line that back up to where it's supposed to be. And then again, with the same thing as I did last time, I'm going to take and just put a small little coating on the outside just to seal those cracks. And try to make it as flush as possible with your epoxy. And then I can notice right down in there, I'm just going to drop a few little bits down right in here and let it fill in those gaps. Just to reinforce it a little bit. And other side as well. Can already start to feel the epoxy starting to gum up. 5 minute, you gotta kind of work rather quickly. Now I will be using 15 minute on the wing once we get to that part. And that should do it for that. So we will just let that sit. There's really no need to put a whole lot of pressure. I will hold it just for a second, or not a second, but just for a few minutes. Just okay. So I'm mixing up some epoxy for. I'm going to attempt to fix this part on the bottom side of the cowling here. So this one's going to be a little bit tough. I am going to have to put a lot of pressure on it as the glue sets. So I did put a little bit of extra hardener in there. So I want to make sure I mix this up really well and start spreading it around there, and then I'm going to have to literally put a lot of force and hold this together. So I have to put copious amounts in here. And really just lay it on thick. Try and get in every little bit I can. I know it's not going to come out perfect, but we're going to try and seal this up the best we can. Alright, so I think, well, I'll put a little bit more right there. Alright, so now I'm going to hold it as tight as I can right there. And wish I'd have had a napkin. No, we go, like that. So again, lots of pressure to hold that. It's very tight on there. And we'll show you the end result.
Go ahead.
Okay, so what I've done is I did hold it for the majority, for 3 to 4 minutes, to where it was able for me to actually let go. And then I put these 3 rubber bands around it. And these rubber bands are readily available if you like asparagus. They come from the grocery store. So I'm gonna keep these rubber bands on there probably overnight, just in case. I know it sets in 5 minutes, but I'm just gonna leave it there because this was a tight point to hold. It did take a lot of pressure and a lot of arm strength to keep that together. Not perfect, but it will work. So we got one more thing to do to the fuselage, and we're gonna call it a night. So, whoa, unless I break something. But yeah, so that part, that'll heal up nicely, and we'll move on to the next part here in a second.
Go ahead.
Okay, so about to mount this piece back in, and for that I'm gonna use the 15-minute epoxy. So I'm getting it stirred up now, and again with this one, I'm apply good amount to hold this in. So, and this will give me time to set it where I want it, you know, so it sits exactly in the place that it needs to be in. And plus, this is also where your motor is going to be mounted onto, so you want to make sure this is good and strong. So I'm gonna go ahead and stand this up. So I'm gonna apply a good amount to the sides here. And also this bottom area, because that's where it will rest on the bottom part. And I'm gonna use every bit I can, so when this cures, it's gonna be a good solid bond and holding this in place. And make sure we get the insides right here.
You were dripping.
Okay. And this does fit a little tight, which is fine. You want it to fit tight. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and add this, and you will need to put a little bit of pressure And then, like I said, I did have to cut some away. Press it in like that, and it will sit firmly against this piece right here. So now it's in, and we can let that sit, and that of course sit overnight, and that should be a good bond there. All right, guys, RC Texan here. We're gonna end it for the night. So we have got the side of the fuselage patched up. We did brace it on the inside. We got the board mounted back in, so that's glued in. It's not going anywhere. We've got this patched up. Like I said, it's not pretty, but it will hold. We're gonna keep the rubber bands on there overnight. And the motor mount piece that was loose, I had to trim this away, pull this out, and re-glue the inside of the foam on the inside of there. Once that was set, and then we just put this back in here, and we're gonna call it a night, and we'll pick up back tomorrow, and we'll start with the wings. So, all right, everybody, it's the RC Texan back tonight, and just to recap, last night we worked on the fuselage. We sealed this up, put some braces in here. We re-glued the board on, and we worked on this bottom half. I'm gonna go ahead and take these rubber bands off. They've been on there all night. So, and it held together, so that's good. And then also re-centered the motor mount, glued the foam pieces behind it to support it, and glued that in. So now it's rock solid in there. So now we're going to work on the rudder. I made this rudder just out of some spare pieces of balsa. So I'm going to be putting 2 wooden dowels in the bottom of here, and then 1 here, and then I will attach them both down here. So it will be a vertical stabilizer. Now there will be no movement left or right, but it will serve its purpose to keep the plane from going left or going right. So these are the little wooden dowels that I'll be putting in here, and then I will be using 15-minute glue, or I'm sorry, 15-minute epoxy to hold these in place. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, really all this is a wooden skewer that you would get from the grocery store if you want to do like shish kebabs or something like that. So I'm just going to use that to poke the holes. I was going to use my drill, but I thought this would be a little bit more accurate so the drill didn't wander off. So I'll put one there, and I'll put one right there. And then I'm gonna put one in the center right here. There we go. Now, once I have the holes, I will be taking these 3 and I will insert them and glue these in place. And then once they're in place, I'm gonna push down on where the rudder is gonna go, so it's gonna make some indentions in the foam, and I will use this same piece to poke holes into the back of the fuselage, and I'll show you that once we get to that point. Okay, so I've got the little wooden dowels in. So the next step will be I'm gonna push this down onto the back of the vertical stabilizer and make an indention. So what I will do is get it lined up where I want it. So I'm gonna want it right in here. So I'm just gonna push down just a little bit so I can make marks. a little bit harder. Okay, so now I've got my marks. Now I can take the same piece that I used and push down there. There. And there. All right. And as soon as the epoxy dries here, we're gonna epoxy and put in there. Ready to go ahead and mount the rudder on. And first what I'm gonna do is just gonna dab some epoxy down in these holes that I just made. Alright, now with my popsicle stick, I'm going to spread some epoxy over the base here. And I know I'm going to have some overflow, but that's fine. That's what paper towels are for. Alright, so now go ahead and fit this on. Oops. Gotta make sure I get all 3 holes. And push down. Alright, now it's set, and I'll just take some paper towels here. Alright, so now stabilizer's in place, and I'm just going to do a visual check to see if I'm pitched any certain way, and looks like it's straight on. So it's not the prettiest rudder in the world, but it's gonna work. All right, so this is gonna be the biggest adventure on this one. So I'm gonna mix up some epoxy. I'm gonna use 15-minute epoxy, so I have plenty of time to work with. Make sure that this spar and everything is lined up perfectly. So I'm gonna mix up some epoxy, and I'll get back with you in a second. All right, so I'm gonna start by putting the epoxy down in this joint right here where the spar is gonna go. So I know I'm gonna be globbing it on, which is fine. Definitely want to make sure I get it all in there. All right, now I'm gonna apply the epoxy to this side, since it's facing in a direction where it's going to be easier for me to pick it up and put it together. and definitely use a good amount, because we definitely do not want this coming apart. Hold that where I can spread that in. And I will have to do some cleanup on the wiring once I get everything glued and the epoxy has cured. I'll go back and I'll probably tape that with probably some clear tape to go over it, not the blue tape that comes on it. And I am going to put some on this side. I want to try to get it all these little nooks and crannies. I know I got epoxy dripping, but alright, so now I'm gonna throw this together. I'm gonna start by putting that spar in place. And I wanna make sure I push that completely down and then work that in. Now see, that spar was sticking out, so I wanna make sure I put my thumb in there and push that down as far as I can. I'm gonna take a paper towel here and wipe off this epoxy. And I know it's moving, but it's all right, it hasn't set yet. So, sit here, both sides. Very good, get a little wipe there. Alright, and I just want to make sure that everything's clean, good. The spar is down where it's supposed to be. I can even put just a little more on top of that spar. Just to kind of seal it over. That paper towel. Run over it. And then I will hold it for a few minutes while it starts to set. I can already feel the bottom of the cup getting warm, so I can tell it's starting to set. The wing is nice and straight. Well, it's where it needs to be. There's top, there's bottom. Got this wing half, or this portion glued on. Just doing a trial fit. Still got a lot of work to do on this wing. Of course, you can see the wires. I got some other pieces to glue on. Servo to add on. So just giving a little update. So here's the progress so far. Alright guys, so I'm about to glue this piece on. This is gonna go right in here, which is part of what holds the wing on the rear side. So I'm using 15-minute epoxy, and have to make sure the wires all run through here and come out on this side. So when you glue it, you have to be very careful about gluing this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this epoxy on here. Alright. Now as I put this piece on, I want to make sure these wires are not getting glued on there. So I want to make sure the fit is good. It's good there. Got a little overrun, which is fine. Because I can just take that and right there. Actually, I might just take a little epoxy and spread it in there. And that'll hold that just for a second while I get just a little dab of this on there. Keep twisting that so it won't. There we go. Put some on the inside there. And I know I got some overrun right there. I can also go right inside there. Because this is a very important piece since it will be holding the wing on. So I do want to make sure I have a nice fit on both sides. So it looks like I'm right there. And I am going to apply direct pressure while this cures, at least until it gets tacky enough to where I can take my hands off of it. So, all right, see you for the next one. All right, everybody, I just mixed up some 5-minute epoxy. I have this little piece right here that needs to be glued in. So, just got the 5-minute epoxy mixed up and just gonna apply some here. And then some on the other side here. Alright, and since it's 5-minute, I will just hold this in place. And that's it. All right, hey everybody, RC Texan here, and I'm gonna go over these. Sometimes your foam hinges will come undone. So if you can see here, the foam hinge is completely come undone. So what I've done is first take the control horn completely off of there so I can get full flexibility in it. And I'll take tape and lay alongside the seam there, and then on the sides, and then I'll turn it over and I'll do the exact same thing on the bottom. So that way you've got a full seam, so that hinge will not come off. I'm gonna do it to the other side. So what I'll do, and won't have to watch the whole thing, but I'm just gonna cut a piece of tape, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it and just pull it where hinge will stay all the way back for me, so it's fully flexed down. I'm just gonna measure out, it's about right there, and cut. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold the tape over, and then I'm gonna lay the sticky side down into the crease. And once I lay it down inside the crease, I'm gonna run my finger through there. And then once that's on there, I can start folding over. And then just to make sure, I'll run it through there again and then start folding the bottom side down. And sometimes you will get a little air bubbles, and now I'm going to take this piece off. And sometimes you will get some bubbles in there. It's no big deal. You want to use tape that's pretty tacky. So, and of course I went over that control horn. I'll end up cutting that off. But so now I've got a tape hinge that's going to be a lot stronger than the foam hinges that came with it. And I'll do the reverse side and we'll move on to the next part. Okay guys, so the flaps needed to be rehinged as well, so I'm doing the same process. So I'm going to start with this one, and then I'm going to finish the next two. So again, crease it. Oops. Try to sit it in there. There we go. I'll help there. Set it in. Make sure we get that crease line. And make sure you want to firmly press against there on each side. Then you can just fold over. There we go. And now we got a hinge that's in place, and that part's a little loose, so we'll retape that. We'll tape that from the other side, but that's it, and we'll finish the rest of them. So I did the two sides that needed it. So you can see I got it on here and on here, and then on the across the bottom side on each one. So now they are firmly in place. So still functional flaps, and move on to the next part. All right, everybody, I've got the motor mounted back in, and I've got the ESC mounted on the side here. So, and I've already done a trial fit of the cowling. So now, really the only thing left to do is mount the wings, hook up everything. I did have to borrow a servo from P47, and I haven't decided if I'm going to use a 4-blade prop that also fits on my P47, or if I'm going to go with the 2-blade prop. So other than that, it's pretty much finished, and next video will be the flight.
But we had to take all the landing gear off. Oh.
Y'all got it. Oh yeah, y'all got that one.
Yeah.
Y'all just gotta figure out how y'all gonna land it. Oh yeah, that's good. Oh yeah, he got that.
I think it flies better now.
It flies better.
Yeah, it was left heavy when we first got it.
Definitely looks smooth right now. Must have mangled it the first time. They didn't think y'all would be able to get it back.
Yeah. Oh no, the entire wing was broken half. The fuselage was broken half.
Was the crash really bad?
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you the video. Yeah, you're at 2 minutes.
How long did they say he had to fly it for?
They just said if he got it in the air, so this is great.
It's gonna end up hurting it. They can hit it that hard. I think he gonna, as smooth as it's flying, he should be able to land it pretty good on this grass.
I recommend you break it. I used to have that today. What? Because you're getting the new one, anyway.
Now you got two of them.
Belly landing. Ooh. Oh.
All right, so this was the FMS 1400mm Corsair. We did the videos on the build, on the rebuild. That was the maiden flight after the crash, and it had a nice little belly landing. Kept the prop intact. I'd say that's a win in my book.